Dear Dr. H.P. Abrol, dear colleagues and friends, first of all, I have to make a correction. I used to be the director of the CSH in New Delhi, a French research center. Now, it was 15 years back. Now I'm back as a researcher and very happy to be. So, Dr. H.P. Abrol, dear colleagues and friends, let me first thank the organizer for having given me the opportunity to be with you today. I'm very honored and grateful. For the past two days, you have most probably here quite a lot of soil scientists, but very few economists. So I will give you today the great pleasure to hear one. And first, I will tell you my own story of Indian soil from my economic point of view. It will be the first part of my talk, and secondly, I will present you worldwide initiatives that may be interesting for India, as well as for Indian soil, as well as for Indian farmer. So let's start with the first part of my talk. So entitled "From Mainstream Economics to ground realities." So this PowerPoint was done yesterday evening, so I don't know, I hope I won't be too long. So how stands agriculture within the model of modern growth? There is a huge literature on what we call in economics structural transformation. And structural transformation or structural change refer to the reallocation of economic activity across the three broad sectors: agriculture, industry, and services. And a recipe for eradicating historical rural poverty is to pull or push farmers in developing sector, namely industry and services, to increase their land productivity with modern input like chemical fertilizer, pesticide, irrigation, new gene, and so that few remains in farming. We arrive in what C.P. Timmer called, in a book published in 2009, a world without agriculture, where agriculture do not represent more than 3% of GDP and 3% of employment. But what is great in that world is that the labor productivity across sector between agriculture, between farmer and non-farmer, has converged. So this is what I call myself the Lewis path that was in fact followed by industrial and transition country for the past decades. Since the 60s, indeed, the absolute number of farmers decreased sharply. I can tell you myself, I'm a son of a farmer. And in my village, I can tell you that there is almost no more farmer, only one farm, while in my childhood there were many. And we arrived in what Timmer called a world without agriculture, but the average agricultural wages are almost equal to average non-agricultural wages. I mean, farmers now in France live like other people. So one condition in that, the condition to follow this path, so once again I follow the Lewis path, is that the growth of labor productivity, let's say growth of income for the farmer, has to be has to be faster than either the growth of agriculture itself and the growth of non-farm labor productivity. So in other words, it means that do industrialize or mechanize at a large scale faster agriculture than any other sector. This is what this equation means, and very few realize. So we ask agriculture to follow this path, to once again to growth, to follow this equation. And what are the results of this path? We arrive in a world where we have, like in France today or the US, etc., we have very few monoculture and few agro industries downstream and upstream to the agricultural sector. We have a very low, because of this monoculture, etc., monoculture also concentrated livestock breeding. We have a very low resilience to either economic shock or climatic shock. And we have rather high carbon emission because this kind of agriculture is reliance on fossil fuel, etc. So the thing is that do we have all this model in mind? This is a model in the mind of mainstream economics, in the mind of politicians, in the mind of industrialists. And when we think modern agriculture, we think of following this path. The problem is that in India, in Asia more generally, we are in what I call a Lewis trap. And I think this trap will be soon in Africa. Indeed, there are changing conditions for the latecomers in industrialization. One change is that, first of all, we have in India, like elsewhere in Asia and in Africa and Latin America, high population growth and a booming active population. Secondly, very importantly, we have no more opportunity of massive international labor immigration. I remember you that, for example, from 1850 to the First World War, about 40 million Western people migrate to the New World because they were looking for jobs. Okay, so such an opportunity are no more. And third, we have, and this is also very important, much less labor-intensive industrial services due to automatization. Okay, in world where we produce car now, we are no more at the time of manufacture, but we produce car now in India, like in France or the US, and it's with quite a lot of automation. So here, in that case, in that Lewis trap, that's the one follow for the past decades in India and in Asia more generally, we have exactly the polar opposite of the Lewis path. It means that the labor productivity, so income in agriculture, grow lower than the growth of agriculture and the growth of general labor productivity. So what are the results? This is very important. First, agriculture and non-agriculture wages gap increased instead of narrowing. So there is, of course, risk of severe social and political crisis we have already in India, not later than the past year. We have a land availability per farmer which decreases instead of increasing. So increase in labor productivity relies only on land productivity and not on mechanization. So an increase in land productivity relies only and highly on subsidized input like chemical fertilizer, electricity for pumping water, etc., of the green revolution in the case of India, and soilless livestock breeding. So we have an overexploitation. The farmer has no choice to intensify his land. We give him a technology package, which is one of the green revolution, and because he cannot enlarge his farm is not even enlarging, it's decreasing from a generation to another. He has to produce a maximum per unit of land, and with the green package of the technology package of the green revolution, he's pumping more and more water, he's applying more and more fertilizer, etc. So we have an overexploitation more than elsewhere, an overexploitation and rapid depletion of natural resources, including soil, water, etc. And we have very high carbon emission. So this leads me to think of a paradigm shift where agriculture will be embedded in both primary and tertiary sector. I will tell you why, but for the moment, the equation at stake is the following: we have to increase farmers' income and also production. Without sending most of them in shantytown, and we have here the prices, which play, of course, a big role, and the cost of non-agricultural input. It means chemical fertilizer, etc. So one vision I try with others to promote is a science and farmer managing a mosaic of agroecosystem, boosting local synergy amongst many plants and animal species above and below the ground surface. Why this? Because, first of all, if you look at the equation above, it can, in the long run, you can have higher biodiversity and biological synergy. So with higher biodiversity and biological synergy, you can augment increase your production, and also your resilience, economic and climate economic and climate shock. You very important. You can save input cost, so you can reduce production cost, so and also decrease environmental cost. You can get higher prices, P, because you increase the quality of the product by producing tasty and nutritious foods. You also produce co-product, and you also produce ecosystem services of local and global importance. And all in all, you can have a higher labor productivity for knowledge-intensive and context-specific work, and also we know that small farms are usually more productive and profitable per hectare. So here, this is the first part of my talk. The second part is the 4 per thousand initiative. Is it an opportunity for India? So the 4 per thousand initiative, I will present you just a few seconds after, but I will start from a diagnosis from my colleague at the French embassy, Cédric Prévost, who is in charge of agricultural affairs, and we discuss, he is now at the French International Agricultural Salon, Salon International de l'Agriculture in France. It's a big fair of agriculture where all politicians, we have election in few months, and all politicians go to this agricultural fair, and he has to go there, and we discussed a bit on this, and he wrote me from yesterday evening. India has no choice. With 30% of degraded soils, non-performing irrigation, yields that stagnates or even decline, it has to review all factors of production, including the first one, namely soils. Hence, the policy of the soil health map launched by the Modi government. But the modalities are not well calibrated. What criteria for soil measurement? What methods? What diagnosis? What advices? What soil practices should be promoted in the Indian context? It is in the field opened by these questions that could be strengthened an Indo-French cooperation around the 4 per thousand initiative. So what is this 4,000 per thousand initiative? So I will present you a small cartoon to give you this one. I hope the
soils for food security and climate. Human activities release enormous quantities of carbon dioxide, CO2, into the atmosphere. This intensifies the greenhouse effect and accelerates climate change. Every year, plants recover 30% of CO2 thanks to their process of photosynthesis. Later, when plants die and decompose, living organisms in the soil, such as bacteria, fungi, and earthworms, transform them into organic matter. This carbon-rich organic matter is essential for human food because it holds water, nitrogen, and phosphorus, which are essential to the growth of plants. The world's soil contains 2 to 3 times more carbon than the atmosphere. Increasing this storage of carbon by 0.4% per year, or 4 parts per thousand, in the top 30 or 40 centimetres of the soil could stop the increase of CO2 in the atmosphere. This is the proposal of the 4 parts per thousand Soils for Food Security and the Climate Initiative. The increase in carbon storage in soils would therefore contribute not only to stabilising the climate, but also to ensuring food security, that is, the supply of sufficient food for all people. How can it be carried out? Policy measures must be established to reduce deforestation and encourage ecological farming practices that boost the amount of organic matter in soils and meet the 4 parts per thousand every year objective. Examples would be: avoid leaving the soil bare so as to limit carbon loss. Restore crops, pastures and degraded forests. Plant trees and legumes that have the ability to fix atmospheric nitrogen in the soil. Use manure and composts to nourish the soil, or allow water to collect at the base of plants. Who is targeted? There are 570 million farmers in the world and more than 3 billion people living in rural areas that could implement these practices. At what cost? To restore agricultural soils, it would cost a few dozen dollars per hectare. However, agroforestry and the renewal of forests would require more investments. And for how long? The sequestration of carbon in soil would continue for 20 to 30 years after the good farming practices are put in place, provided these practices are maintained. Under the 4 parts per thousand initiative, researchers are coming together with farmers, associations, economic stakeholders, regions and countries for the purpose of food security and climate.
There was a second video on Ratanlal, but maybe we don't have the time to... No, okay. So I come back to my presentation, which is there. So this initiative was presented in Paris at the COP21 by the French people. And now they have a website, they have a brochure, so you can go and visit the 4per1000.org website. Here I copy some element of this. In the brochure, they say join the 4per1000 initiative, Soil for Food Security and Climate. So here, building on solid scientific documentation, this is a scientific also initiative, first of all, and concrete action on the ground. The 4per1000 initiative, Soil for Food Security and Climate Change, aims to show that food security and combating climate change are mutually complementary. This is a big idea. And to ensure that agriculture is a source of solution. This initiative consists of a voluntary action plan under the Global Climate Action Agenda, backed by ambitious research program. So there was also a seminar in Marrakesh at the COP22, some talk on this initiative, just at the end of last year. So here the scientific program is a bit more detailed. Once again, it's starting. Here they say knowledge, design, and co-construction, that's what I like, of a co-construction of a 4per1000 agricultural and forestry practices. So first point is review by system and by region of scientific and traditional knowledge concerning agriculture and forestry practices, including agroecology, agroforestry, and landscape approach. Second, modeling crop, pasture, and forestry carbon balance under both conventional and improved practices. Third objective, biophysical implementation of improved practices for water, nutrients, greenhouse gas emissions, yield, and the nutritional value of crop and livestock product. And fourth, performance trade-off and synergy across multiple objectives and best options to boost synergy between mitigation and adaptation. So, and they suggest also there is a suggested governance. I cannot tell you more because I've seen that recently about this governance, but this is once again under building. I would hand my talk by some open remark or question I have on this initiative, and in link with the first part of my presentation. So the first remark or question I have is a 4per1000 initiative. Is it a move towards a new socio-technical regime based on agroecology, which means either, and agroecology means either a scientific disciplines, an agricultural practice, and or a political social movement, as wrote some colleague of mine in 2009. So if yes, there is a need for a very strong nationwide and worldwide coalition because opposite forces are very strong. And I can tell you that even in France, this is a big battle between what the farmers saying or lobby saying we are for modern agriculture, the one I described before, and the one saying we can go for more agroecological practices. and store carbon, etc. So there is a big fight, and this fight I've seen not only in France but everywhere. In India, much less because there is not a lot of talk on agroecology. But lot of talk on a little bit of talk on organic farming, but less on agroecology. The second question or remark is the 4,000 initiative. They say soil for food security and climate, but also and for labor productivity of very small scale farmer, because most of the farmers in the world now are small, very small scale farmer. In India, the average availability of land per agricultural worker is around 0.7 hectare, while in Canada, for example, it's about 200 hectares. Okay, you see the huge difference, and this difference has not narrowed during the past decades, but increased. So most of the farmers are very small-scale farmers, so they have to get their income from a very small piece of land. So the 4,000 initiative may be a very good initiative for soil health, but soil health, if it does not provide farmer wealth, there is a problem. How the question of, especially the case of India, but also the case of continental Asia, and soon I'm sure in Africa, is the case of land constraint and labor abundant country like India are really taken in account, and what is the scientific agenda or plan in this field. And the third question or remark is 4,000 initiative. It may be an opportunity to embed agriculture into the service sectors with payment for local and global environmental services, if not social services, because if we don't provide decent income to farmer, there will be, and I've done some simulation for India, there is still a move. I mean, farmers would like to escape agriculture, but they can't. But if we arrive, for example, in a world without agriculture in 2050 in India, let's imagine, I've done some basic simulation, it will one condition is that mega humanization unprecedented in human history. You know, it means that 80% of the 250 population, it means 1.3 billion people, will have to live in city, which the density will be higher than the most densest city today in the world. So we have to provide decent income to farmers, small-scale farmers, and maybe this initiative can help through not only increase land productivity and with more resilient agriculture to climate and economic shock, but also with an agriculture that will provide ecological services like filtering water instead of polluting, storing carbon instead of emitting carbon, and like any services, these services must be paid by the society, and maybe this initiative opens such an opportunity. I thank you for your attention.
Name and definition, because I think
yeah, sure. I'm Dorin. I'm working with the Agroecological Rural Support Program, India. And my question is that, what is, it was a very nice presentation about the role of the organic matter and how it can, support climate change adaptation and mitigation. So the direct question to you is, what is the scope of carbon trading if it is adopted or promoted at village level in India? So if it is promoted at village level on a model basis, so are there certain examples from around the globe that carbon trading is happening if such practices is adopted, or what is the future of that? We would like to have understanding about it. Thank you.
Kailasmurti, a natural farmer. So I'm using only sunlight and minimum water to produce more and conserve ecology. See, organic product and chemically grown used product. The naturally grown product is cheaper than the both. So that's why you should promote this kind of farming. Then it benefits the society. For example, I am using only sunlight. There is no other inputs because abundantly available sunlight. And the water scarcity is also there in coming days. Less water I am using. When the production cost comes, the rich food, naturally grown food, we can supply to the society. So this is my, because you are told in the 3 that this organic product can have more price than chemically grown. That's why
Okay, thank you. That was the issue.
Good morning. I just would like to ask, given that you're connected through the French initiatives, we've been collaborating in carbon sequestration, a carbon model in southern India, in the state of Andhra Pradesh, with the Livelihoods Group based in France. It's a consortium of 10 companies who basically want to wash their carbon sins with some reasonably good work in the third world, or if we can call it the third world. And it's also connected with Microbes restoration and Sundarbans. So what I'm wondering is this 4x1000 initiative, is there any way that we can collaborate on a larger scale with this livelihoods group, who are very open? They have an L3F where larger companies are connected. There's a lot of upfront money, which is a big advantage. And the biggest advantage of it is that I see is that it's a minimum 20 to 30 years. So we're talking about investments with small farmers. We have planted something like 6 million trees in the Arcot region with small farmers. And these are all food forests. They're not necessarily just forestry. They are food forests that they're building, which is part of the initiative. So my question is, can we collaborate on a larger scale? We're looking at now working with farmers in UP, with mint. We're looking at soil carbon methodologies to increase the number of partners. So I'm wondering whether this 4x1000 initiative can be part of a greater consortium.
Thank you. Thank you for starting this with a brilliant lecture. My question is this one related to some of these questions we've already done. How is this sitting in India and other countries in the world? So climate change is increasingly making us less of independent nations and making us more mutually dependent eco-regional republics. So how do we negotiate this? The second question is specifically about a big hurdle that we face. One is an interest from some state governments. There is also a commitment from our union government on carbon sequestration and also improving farmers' incomes. But what are the kind of, well, if you would suggest some policy initiatives that can be immediately taken up? We have certain schemes already in place. So if there's any recommendation of that sort, we would like to hear that too. Thank you.
Question to Dr. Bruno is, sir, other than increasing for 4,000 carbon all over the world, so it's a different from place to place, organic carbon content is different from place to place. So a blanket recommendation of increasing a 4x1000 carbon content all over the world, other than fixing a target, what does it offer compared to other soil conservation measures or initiatives? Other than fixing this target of 4x1000, what does it offer, and investment in different level? Any specific offer from the for action at the field? That's my
Thank
question.
you, thank you.
Yeah, the very first question is what is the scope for carbon trading at village level? I don't know. But what I'm sure is that if India joins this initiative, maybe it can help to, to work the question and to find a solution. But as long as countries like India are not part of this initiative, it will be difficult, to promote, to try to find a solution. So I don't know how it can be implemented in India, frankly speaking. First, I think what is important is to change the mind and the approach fix some target, because this is important, and go to that direction with the tool we think collectively. Okay, so I'm not how it can be implemented. This is a big question. I remember when I was in India 25 years back, I was starting discussing environmental question, and of course, I was in another college for my PhD, and I was start discussing environmental issue, and my colleagues or professors say, but environment, what is important is growth and income, etc. Yes, but we reach a level now that I'm convinced that, especially in the case of India, we have to find, because of the very small scale, which will stay, the very small scale of farm, the very low availability of land per worker, we have to find a solution where not only the income is based on the productivity of the land, and I think agroecology can provide you much more in the long run than current agriculture, but also we have to pay as a farmer for services. And instead of shifting, like in the mainstream economics, you shift labor from agriculture and to industries and to services, why not thinking immediately, and the cost will be much less, agriculture embedded already in services. The second question, cheaper input, it was more a remark, I think. Regarding carbon sequestration, maybe you work with my colleague of Sierra. I'm from Sierra myself. Yeah, you work with them.
We work with a livelihoods group based, it's connected with the Danone ecosystems.
Okay.
There are 7 companies, 10 companies that put money into a fund for this.
So I would be very interested to forward this information to my colleague.
Yes.
Once again, this is an initiative which needs coalition. In India, what I know, I'm not myself Mr. 4,000, okay? I was just asked a few weeks back by my colleague in France to join a group for thinking and to send some light literature on India, etc. I accepted, and just a few days after I received Rasheshwari Rena invitation, so I said, why not presenting this 4,000 initiative? And I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea because, and I will answer as a PhD student here, a target is very important. Policy speaking, it's very important to have a target. And once again, for coalition, we need such messages. And the more we will be, the better we'll be. But I think a country like India, what I wanted to say is that I know that ICAR is interested, but didn't sign anything for the moment. But 2 organizations have signed something. The BAIF, you know very well, and maybe you work with them, they do a wonderful job, and the TERI. Okay? They have signed a memorandum, etc. So please, we will exchange our visiting card. Rasheshwari, I think the one who spoke just after you answered quite clearly. I mean, we are trapped in India, like in France before, and it's changing, but it's very difficult. But more in India, we are trapped in this regime of incentive. This is you clearly, very clearly and well said it. We are in a regime of incentives that we cannot escape. Why? Because if you are a politician, you start saying, I will increase the price of electricity. Will you be elected? No change. Okay. I will increase the price of fertilizer. Will you be elected? No change. So how to escape from this trap? I don't know. But this is except once again, if you start saying that if you farmer, you provide an ecological services like carbon thing, or increase biodiversity, I think it's very important, etc., etc. And we will pay you for that. Maybe it could change, okay? But I don't know yet how it can be implemented. But for sure, the regime of incentive in India is against this, but I don't know how any politician can escape for the moment of it. I think I will stop here.
Thank you. 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 Thank you.